ستقوم القوات المسلحة.
The army and police will avenge our martyrs and return security and stability with force in the coming short period.
Now, Egypt has suffered several attacks by terror groups based in Northern Sinai, and Cairo struggled to defeat those responsible. Now, it appears the government may have enlisted the help of an unlikely ally. A report by the New York Times says that over the past 2 years, Israel has carried out more than 100 airstrikes inside Egyptian territory, targeting Daesh. The news, which Cairo denies, has shocked many. Now, Egypt and Israel have gone to war 3 times in the last 6 decades, and President Sisi's government says that his forces are the only ones fighting terror groups in the Sinai. So, is there a secret alliance or not? And if there is, how does it impact regional relations? Well, to try and get to the bottom of this, I'm joined from Tel Aviv by Neri Zilber. He's an Israel analyst and former executive of the World Jewish Congress. From London is Aly el Kabbany. He's a specialist on Egyptian affairs and the former general manager of the Islamic Press Agency. In completing our panel from Washington is the Middle East analyst, the columnist, Sigurd Neubauer. Gentlemen, welcome. First of all, to you, Aly el Kabbany, and putting aside just for the moment, if you will, please, wider issues of Palestine and regional stability, because we'll come to those later in the discussion. As a mere tactic to remove terrorists from part of your country, do you support Sisi's fight and perhaps alliance with Israel?
We have to realize first that the military rule in Egypt from day one relied on close cooperation with the Zionist entity, because America stopped all the military aid to Egypt after the military coup, because the American law does not allow any aid to go from the United States to a regime in which a military coup took place. So Sisi's regime contacted Netanyahu in Israel to use the Israeli lobby in the United States to assume that what happened in Egypt was the will of the Egyptian people and it was not a military coup. As such, they resumed sending the military aid of $1.3 billion annually to Egypt in the last 3-4 years. So the cooperation between Sisi's regime and the Zionist regime in Tel Aviv is very strong, and actually the Israelis made more than 100 air attacks on Sinai to attack what they call terrorists and the ISIS elements in the Sinai region.
Sorry, just
all
pick up
Israeli
on... Sorry,
newspapers
Aly el Kabbany,
admitted this fact.
Aly el Kabbany, sorry to interrupt you.
We are actually accusing the Egyptian of not recognizing it.
If you let me finish my question. You said so-called terrorists. Do you not think that there is Daesh elements in the Northern Sinai that have been attacking Christians in the past couple of months and killed hundreds?
You know, there is always rumors that there are Daesh forces in Sinai. But the funny thing is, they only do certain terrorist attacks when it suits Sisi's regime.
Attacking Christians? Sorry, I have to speak up on that again. Mr. El Kabbany, attacking Coptic Christians suits Mr. Sisi's regime. Is that what you're actually telling us?
I'm saying that these attacks actually happen only when it suits the regime and it serves their interests, and also to allow the Israelis to have a free hand in Sinai to attack as and when they need, again also to help their own interests, not specially to help the Egyptian people.
Okay, we'll leave that where it is for now. Neri Zilber and Tel Aviv, just come in for me if you would. If you can go back to the point that I first tried to make to Mr. El Kabbany, the alliance that may be being played out between Egypt and Israel in terms of a fight against terrorism, do you think it's a good idea?
There is definitely terrorism going on in the Sinai. It is definitely ISIS affiliated, if not directed. They've killed hundreds, not only local Egyptians in the Northern Sinai, but also, as you mentioned, Coptic Christians, Russian tourists, and all the way down into Egypt proper, as it were. So it's a real security issue for the Egyptian government, for the Sisi government, and what the New York Times laid out publicly just a few days ago was the fact that there is cooperation between Israel and Egypt on this very important and delicate security issue. And they're assisting the Egyptian authorities and the military in trying to put down what is has proven to be a very difficult insurgency in the Sinai. And I think this is all for the good.
Okay, Sigurd Neubauer, just come in on that for me, please, if you would. As quickly as you can, just bring together some of those ideas of the fight against war and take this a step further for us, which I kind of know where Aly el Kabbany is going to come on this point. But in terms of being a peace broker in the Middle East for the Palestinian cause, Egypt allying with Israel fighting Daesh is going to cause problems.
Well, first of all, I think that there's important to add a historic perspective here to this discussion, and that is that following the 1979 Egyptian-Israeli peace treaty, both parties agreed to that the Sinai Peninsula would be demilitarized. And because of that, there's no Egyptian law enforcement in that area. And because Egypt is struggling with insecurity and structural challenges from an economic situation that is pretty severe, the Israelis and the Egyptians, which enjoy a peace treaty and enjoy a pragmatic relationship. And it is important to emphasize that what states do is that they cooperate. Egypt and Israel have a strong neighborly relationship. The Israelis have the capability to provide modern technology and intelligence cooperation capabilities to track Daesh in the Sinai. That is a fact. There are other terrorist cells there as well. But I also want to turn it to the other side, and that is that Egypt has also been an important partner on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. You surely remember in 2014, during the last Israel-Gaza war, it was the Egyptians that helped broker the eventual ceasefire between those parties. And to put it forward, just last week in Brussels, the European Union hosted the ACDL meeting, which is the principal coordination committee for the Palestinian people to build a Palestinian state. The international summit was convened by the EU but chaired by Norway, that will work to help bring forward President Trump's peace plan between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And the Egyptian foreign minister, Samuel Sukri, was in Brussels last week. So it is expected that the Egyptians, along with the Emiratis and Saudis, will work together with the Palestinians and Israel to bring forward President Trump's peace plan. So Egypt has been very helpful to the Israelis when it comes to the Palestinian file, and the Israelis are very, very helpful when it comes to security cooperation in the Sinai. And this is normal diplomacy, this is normal security cooperation, and from the American perspective, this is a welcome development.
Aly el Kabbany, do you take any of that on face value? Do you think that in some slightly perverse way that some may see that an alliance between Egypt and Israel may actually end up helping the Palestinians?
In the matter of fact, I've got many reservations about what was said. There is no peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. There is a surrender treaty in which Egypt got back Sinai and lost its sovereignty over its own land. And as your guest said, the Egyptian army and the security forces cannot go into Sinai without the permission of the Israelis to make sure and to secure this region, which is an integral part of the Egyptian territories. The other thing is, if Israel is interested in peace with the Palestinian, and again, if Donald Trump is interested in peace, there is the international law and there is the United Nations resolution 242, 338, which say that Israel is occupying land since 1967 war illegally and building settlement on these territories which belongs to the Palestinians illegally. So the peace, if we want to achieve it, is very clear. Israel have to abide with United Nations resolution and withdraw from all land occupied after the war of 1967. They are saying that the 242 say from land occupied, not all the land. And this is again an interpretation which violates the international law, because the international law states clearly that no country can occupy and annex the land of another country if this land were gained after a war and by force.
Okay.
So Israel
Thank you.
got this
I've got to
Arab
move it on here,
territories,
please,
Palestinian
Aly el
territories
Kabbany.
and other Arab territories after the June 67 war
Yes.
by force.
You've made your point, sir. Neri Zilber, let's just take this a step wider, if we can, please, and talk about the way that it does seem as if Israel is allying itself with some Arab nations. We've got this report, of course, in the New York Times. We've got rumours of cooperation with the Saudis. How is Israel positioning itself going forward, and how will alliance with some of those nations play out, do you think, domestically for the Israelis?
Well, you're right. It is,
very clear
so to
that
speak,
the
a new
South
Middle
American
East.
Pact tried
States that were formerly hold on, sir. States that were formerly enemies with Israel, adversarial with Israel, are now cooperating, if not publicly, then behind the scenes, primarily on intelligence and, as you mentioned, security cooperation, whether against Daesh in the Sinai or perhaps in Syria as well, in the Syrian border, as well as against Iran, which Israel views as the primary threat in the Middle East.
So can you explain
So I
for
think,
us why
as far
behind
as the
the
Israeli
scenes,
government
if
is
this is
concerned, there are new. Hold on, sir. I let you speak. There are new opportunities as far as Israel is concerned. My own take is that Israel, the current Israeli government, might see it as a way around the Palestinian issue, and that's going to be the real question for the Arab states, whether they go public with this kind of new and evolving relationship with Israel, despite the Palestinian issue not being resolved, and that's still an open question.
Okay, and just let's give the final word then to Sigurd Neubauer. Sigurd, do you expect that this
why
cooperation...
the Arab states are shying away from declaring this cooperation?
You've made your point, Aly el Kabbany. We will come back to you if we can, but let's just give final thoughts here to Sigurd Neubauer. Do we expect this cooperation to continue and perhaps increase in coming years? As Neri was mentioning, the closeness that Israel seems to be creating with Saudi Arabia seems like it's a growing trend.
Look, the mechanisms for a comprehensive Israeli-Arab peace treaty has been spelled out in the Arab Peace Initiative, and for that reason, there have to be significant moves between the Israelis and the Palestinians to hash out differences between themselves. What we do know is that President Trump's objective and strategy for the region is to bring the Israelis together with the members of the Gulf Cooperation Council, which are the 6 U.S. allies in the Persian Gulf. And by bringing them together, what the administration is hoping is to isolate Iran in the region. And for that reason, we're going to expect that President Trump will try to push both the Israelis and the Palestinians to make the necessary concessions for a peace agreement. We're expecting that the Arab states, including Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia in the back, will provide international support for the administration's peace push. This is coming up. Of course, the peace plan by the administration will be released at a suitable time, both for a domestic audience and also to ensure that the conditions on the ground are ripe. We see a lot of diplomatic maneuvering going on, including the meeting that I mentioned last week. It is very positive that the Egyptians, the Jordanians, and the Israelis are responding to President Trump's peace initiative.
Sigurd.
There is some positive momentum here.
Okay, Sigurd Neubauer, thank you. We have run out of time. Sigurd Neubauer in Washington, Aly el Kabbany in London, and Neri Zilber in Tel Aviv. Thank you, gentlemen, for your passionate argument, and thanks for joining us.